Hey everybody, I just came out of a really amazing meeting. I have some things in the works that I am not ready to announce yet, but very soon I will be letting y'all know what this is about. And something came up in the meeting that I think I'm going to take some time today and have a little chat with y'all about it because I think it's a really good question to address. And that is, what is metagaming? Or maybe a better way to say it is, what do you think metagaming is? And so, hey, I'm Gregory. Welcome to D&Daily number 91, let's call it. And I'm glad you're here. This is 1 in 20 D&D. And this came up. It's a totally valid question. And it sort of caught me a little bit off guard in a sense where it's like, oh, yeah, I know what metagaming is, but I could see how someone that doesn't have tons of experience with role-playing games, and especially with D&D, they might not understand what that term refers to. So here's my take on, like, what is metagaming. In my mind, metagaming is when you take knowledge that you as a player possess that your character will not necessarily have access to. This is sort of akin to things like if you're reading a script and you're playing a specific character, like if you are playing one of the victims of a murderer, you don't know necessarily that, especially if it's a murder mystery, you don't know if you're the cop investigating the murder mystery, might even be a better example. You don't know who that murderer is until certain bits of information are revealed to you, and then you might raise a suspicion until you get enough evidence to make a conclusion, to find out definitively this is the case, this person's a murderer. That's just one totally random idea that came into mind regarding this. So when you're playing a character in D&D, let me use a very specific D&D example. So your first level character probably, maybe you've heard a little bit of lore about trolls. Maybe. You've probably heard they're big and nasty. You may have heard that they're incredibly difficult to kill. But have you heard that, you need to hit them with fire, that they regenerate? As a player, you probably know that. But does your character know that? And if you can avoid making those assumptions as a character, that means you are avoiding metagaming. There's other examples of this which are really great to use. Is, let's say you have a group of characters and everyone in the party, sometimes you have different conversations with different members of the party. And even though as a player, you might hear those other conversations, if let's say the fighter goes and has a conversation with the mayor of the town and gets a job. Well, you don't know anything about that. Your character, the cleric, knows nothing about that job until and unless you either A, talk to the mayor, or B, the fighter comes and tells you, hey, I got us a job. So if the fighter comes back and you start asking the fighter about the job before they've said anything to you, that's another version of metagaming. Now, there's no hard and fast rules around this. Every GM is going to handle metagaming differently, and every player is probably going to handle it differently too, to some degree. But the bottom line is, if you do that too much in a game, you kind of look like a schmuck, for one thing. And then on another level, it could totally ruin the immersion of the game. You got people at the table that are really into the story and their characters and trying to follow along with a storyline, and then all of a sudden you start throwing in information or insights that you really shouldn't have, or your character really shouldn't have. It's kind of like throwing a monkey wrench in an engine, right? It's like everything's running smoothly, and then all of a sudden it's like, what just happened? And now everybody has to adjust, and there can be this awkward moment where your DM or GM might have to say, well, wait, you don't really know that. Or, I mean, even one of the other players might say, hey, how do you don't even know that. And you might get accused of metagaming at the table, which it stinks. It's not too much fun. So, yeah, from my perspective, that's kind of what metagaming is in a nutshell. It's taking information that you as a player have and imbuing your character with that information, whether or not they should have that information. So, a good litmus test, or a good question you can ask yourself for your character, like think as your character and say, like, did my character hear this? If not, then you don't know anything about it. The other question you can ask is, does my character know anything about this? Or could my character know anything about this? And your DM might have you roll a history check or a nature check or something like this, and let the die roll determine whether or not your character does in fact recall that information. So it's not something that is like, it shouldn't be something seen as like this horrible taboo or like some unforgivable sin or something like that. It's much more of just kind of like, it's kind of like game etiquette. It's like you want to be cool at the table, you want to play at the table with people in a friendly way, don't metagame. Simple. And if you do, apologize, of course, and just try to catch yourself at a time. And if you catch someone else metagaming, politely say, well, wait a minute, how would your character actually know that? You don't have to make a big fuss about it and blow your stack and get all pissed about it. Just be cool, be calm, handle it like an adult, and you will have a continuing great game. Metagaming is something I, as someone who has played for a long time, I'm pretty familiar with the rules, and I've mentioned before, I can be a rules lawyer, so I try to avoid letting my knowledge of rules and tactics and that kind of stuff influence how I portray my characters in the game. I'm not perfect at it, but that's the stance I'm trying to come from. That's the position I'm coming from. So it was a great question that came up in this meeting that we had today. It's about a D&D game. I will let you know about that, but that's all I'm going to say. It was an awesome meeting with some really awesome people that I'm super excited that I might get the chance to game with, and man, am I looking forward to that. So, yeah, I hope that helps y'all. What is metagaming? How does it influence your games? Do you have any did I miss anything? Like, did I miss something? Like, do you see metagaming in a different way, or is there some small details that I missed? Let me know in the comments, and until I see you tomorrow, or at a table someday, keep rolling 20s, and remember, it's your game. Play your way.